we do need more clarity for the mass market to come in. They will need clarity in terms of rules, how the government is going to support, what's the government's stance on it. The institutions, the financial institutions, if you look at what happened in the United States, right? Went from anti-crypto under President Biden's administration to now very supportive and want to be the crypto capital of the world. Once that clarity comes through, India's crypto adoption will continue to skyrocket. When US say that, I want to be the AI and crypto capital of the world, it is dangerous for others just to ignore these two spaces. Imagine once you have data on AI and you put it on blockchain, you don't need to do any of those reconciliation because nobody can change those records. Right? We begin 2024 with 170 million users globally. You ended last year with 300 million users. Crypto adoption currently is about 8% in the world. The next 10% will come very quickly. By far, Binance is the most regulated exchange in the world. Our assessment is that a lot of fast-growing platforms around the world underinvest in the area of security. 1.4 billion people around the world are excluded from financial services. Crypto solved a lot of those pain points throughout the world.
Thanks for joining us here at ET House in Davos. As a CEO of Binance, I mean, if you look at India is a very different kind of case. We have the world's largest crypto users, but regulation is still very ambiguous. What do you think about the approach that Indian government has taken? I mean, there is meaningful scale, but without any regulatory right kind of framework.
Sure. So if you look at India, very exciting marketplace with plenty of potential and untapped potential, right? So if you look at Chainalysis report on global crypto adoption in the last few years, right? India ranks the number one in terms of grassroots crypto adoption for each of the last few years. So you just demonstrate the grassroots, the groundswell support for crypto in general. So that's a very exciting part. Largest demographics in the world, extremely young population, IT savvy. So we have all the right ingredients for crypto adoption to take place very quickly. But you're right, we do need more clarity on regulations front, right? So I think the early adopters don't need that clarity, but for the mass market to come in, they will need clarity in terms of rules, how the government is going to support, what's the government's stance on it, the institutions, the financial institutions, the payment providers, etc. So if you just, case in point, if you look at what happened in the United States, right? Went from anti-crypto under President Biden's administration to now very supportive and want to be the crypto capital of the world under President Trump. And that land shift has created so many new opportunities, right? So if you just look at the Genius Act that came out to provide clarity on stablecoins. So last year, stablecoins market cap went up by more than 50%. If you look at turnover velocity, transaction volume, has tripled in the second half of the year, right? So you look at transaction volume of stablecoin, it now surpassed, almost double that of what Visa does on a daily basis, right? So you can see how regulatory clarity brings about huge change. And now all the financial institutions are rushing to the marketplace to try to issue their own stablecoins, right? Because it's a superior architecture, superior infrastructure that, resolve a lot of problems that you have with the very archaic fiat channels that we have globally, right? So once that clarity comes through, India's crypto adoption will continue to skyrocket, in my view.
Do you think there'll be an inflection point after which all the governments will be forced to look at crypto again? And are we reaching that inflection point?
My view is this, right? So US, by being the largest economy in the world, the deepest capital markets in the world, when US say that, I want to be the AI and crypto capital of the world, it is dangerous for others just to ignore these two spaces, right? Because these are the space that you have to be competitive going forward to maintain a cutting edge, right? So any countries that don't invest enough into these two key technologies, that in my view will drive every economic sector, right? So if you look at all the financial infrastructure, if you look at supply chain, if you look at media entertainment, going forward, many of this foundation layer, infrastructure, the industry, add robotics into that mix, and things
Deadly
get
combination.
extremely interesting.
Very interesting.
So, any countries, in my view, that don't invest enough, that don't invest enough in terms of its own talent density, in terms of financial investments, will likely suffer a competitive disadvantage vis-a-vis those that do, right? So I do think that countries will sit up, take note, and say, hey, how do we deploy this in these few different important areas going forward?
So we see another disruptive technology, AI, going side by side. Do you think crypto can ride with AI?
To me, they are complementary technologies, right? So you have to utilize both. So if you look at AI can sift through large amount of data, come very succinct. They are good at detecting trends and analysis, etc. And if you complement that with blockchain, and blockchain is immutable, right? It makes the data transparent to all. You can't change it. And once you have it, you don't need, I mean, today in accounting term, we have double entry system, right? So you have to do reconciliation. Many of the middle and back office of financial institutions, that's nothing but accounting reconciliation. Imagine once you have data on AI and you put it on blockchain, you don't need to do any of those reconciliation because nobody can change those records, right? So if you think about it, they are complementary technology. And to harness the usage to the fullest, you need to make use of both of them.
Just give me a sense of how fast is Binance growing and what part of it is India.
Well, so
And,
just
and
to
which
give
are the
you,
areas, which are the geographies which are growing faster? At the one point of time, I think India was the fastest growing.
so if you look at our growth, right? So we took about 5 years. I mean, Binance is an extremely young company, 8.5 years old. We took about 5 years to reach our first 100 million users, and then the next 2 years to slightly more than 2 years to reach our next 100 million users, and very less than 2 years to reach the third 100 million users, right? So we begin 2024 with 170 million users globally. We ended last year with 300 million users, right? So you can see the rapid pace of growth in the course of 2 years. We have added more than 130 million users. So that is the pace of growth. So having said that, we are still at a very early stage of the cycle. Crypto adoption currently is about 8% in the world. The next 10% will come very quickly, in my view.
So basic philosophical question. I mean, by classifying crypto as an asset rather than a currency, has India reduced systematic risk or has it stripped crypto of its core economic value?
Well, so at this point in time, because crypto is so new and so nascent, right? Countries around the world and regulators around the world are still trying to get a proper sense how best to regulate it, right? Even in the US, they are debating on the Clarity Act, right? What's the best way of regulating crypto? But crypto has been regulated in different parts of the world. Sometimes as security,
Yeah.
sometimes as commodity, sometimes as a digital payment token.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just create a totally new terminology, virtual asset or digital asset, because they understand the unique characteristics of this asset class that's quite different from security, it's commodity and payment token. So I think what is more important than the classification is that the utility of crypto continue to grow, right? So regardless of how you designate it, right? If it solve problem, if it bring about better solution, a better infrastructure, better outcome for everybody, people will continue to use it and drive it, right? So if you look at stablecoins has grown sharply last year. So you have certainty of receiving that money. So you can see it's not only the retail that embrace it, but the corporate treasuries of today. They need to move funds from around the world in a very fast manner. They want to reduce the amount of capital that they hold. What better way than to do all those things via stablecoin and crypto?
So one of the arguments that government officials have is that we already have UPI in India.
Yeah.
So why replicate a similar infrastructure, and why create crypto when there is ambiguity about the regulations?
Well, I do think that if you look at UPI, is part of the payment infrastructure, is part of the financial architecture, right? Is important. But crypto complements that. Right? UPI in India is for usage within India by and large, right? But crypto is supposed to help borderless transfer. It never sleeps. It operates on a 24/7 basis, right? It operates on a decentralized basis. And because of that, there are so many things that you can do using that, including programmability, right? Of the different tokens, the different stable coins, etc. So the utility part is much stronger than what you see in the traditional financial space.
But India has also started taking some baby steps. I mean, we've been talking about CBDC now.
Yes.
Do you see CBDCs working across the globe? Do you see successful successful case studies?
Well, 5 years ago, the narrative of a lot of central banks are we are going to push CBDCs, right? But you can see some scaling back of the motivation around that as
So you
well.
don't see CBDCs as competition to crypto, or
I don't see it. I see that if it comes about, it's a good thing because it's also a usage of blockchain technology and it's a testament of how blockchain will transform the world. But if you look at CBDCs in general, so in its purest form, if you have a retail CBDC, that means everyone that's holding a CBDC has a claim on the central bank, right? And you don't want that in a certain extent because you don't want to disintermediate the banks from their role as credit creators, right? Credit extension, expanding the credit cycle of a country. So
Yeah.
the banks play an important part on that front. So, which is why I've seen some scaling backs on those efforts, and a lot of central banks are now focusing on wholesale level CBDCs, right? So, meaning
Yeah.
it's used for interbank settlement, clearing purposes, and leaving the banks to do what they do best, right? Which is credit creation. Right? So, in many sense, the retail crypto complements that. They fill a void. They are much faster, um, and also with government issued CBDCs. I mean, security is a big issue. Privacy is a big issue that they have to overcome. Right? So for all those considerations, I see it shifting somewhat from just pure retail CBDCs to now more wholesale CBDCs.
So there's an inherent disconnect. I mean, if you look at the Indian situation, it's built on centralized control. Crypto is decentralized control. And how do you look at this argument?
There's no argument on that front, right? So uh, the decentralized part of crypto relates to the infrastructure, relates to the technology, the protocol. But if you look at responsible players like ourselves, we are a centralized company, right? And there's beauty to that because by being centralized, we can serve our users better, right? We know their issues, but we also interface much better in many sense with policymakers and regulators. They know who is running the company. And we work very closely with law enforcement agencies globally on that front.
Okay.
On any given year, we get 71,000 requests. We work very closely with them to fight illicit crimes, freeze assets that belongs to fraudsters, financial crimes, etc. So we have the ability to do that, and that is our competitive advantage. I mean, if you talk to banks and financial institutions, you want to deal with centralized counterparty like ourselves. They are properly regulated. Right? So by far, Binance is the most regulated exchange in the world. We have regulated in 21 different jurisdictions, but we also, on a global basis, on an end-to-end, we are the only exchange to be regulated in that fashion for 300 million users by Abu Dhabi Global Market.
You spoke about 22 countries having their own different kind of laws. Which are the most progressive ones that you really like, and that are something that other countries should follow?
I would say the Middle Eastern regulators rank way up there, right?
I agree with that. Yeah.
So if you look at, we are on a global basis, we are regulated by Abu Dhabi Global Market. The key reasons is because the rules are progressive, they support innovation, at the same time they manage risk. And of course, Abu Dhabi is a very well-respected global regulator with good connections on both the East as well as the Western Hemisphere on that front. Abu Dhabi started to regulate crypto in 2018, and I was a party guilty to that as well. I was the CEO of Abu Dhabi Global Market at that point in time,
Yes.
pushing through regulation. So they have been at it for some time, so they have deep expertise, right? The other places would be Central Bank of Bahrain, Dubai Vara. So I would say the Middle Eastern countries have done pretty well on that front to understand the technology, to understand the innovative aspects, and understand the risk aspects to come up with calibrated framework to support this industry.
So one of the problems that India has faced in crypto is basically the one is regulation. The second is with this WazirX hack happening, uh, people have become very cautious of crypto because a lot of people were impacted with that. How are you making sure that this doesn't happen in Binance?
Yes. So you raise a very important question, right? So that is one of security and hacking risk, right? And when in our conversation, and I meet a lot of global regulators, right? Being a regulator myself in the past, when I meet with global regulators, their focus has always been on money laundering, sanction risk, counter-terrorism financing, which are very important, and those are the baseline. But something that I think a lot of global regulators, because of their lack of understanding in this industry, are not paying enough attention to are how platforms, exchanges that hold customer funds are investing into the area of security, right? Into the areas of compliance. How do you build trust? And that cannot be underestimated. For example, in a hack, right, user funds get lost, right? Which is extremely challenging. You can be doing very well, you can offer a best product suite, but if you underinvest in terms of security, there's a big risk. And our assessment is that a lot of fast-growing platforms around the world underinvest in the area of security. So that's an area that regulators will need to pay some attention to. On our front, obviously, we are fully aware of the risk. We have invested greatly. Security is one of the key areas that we invest the best talent, right? We recruit white hats at the best of competition and bring them into the organization, right? Because to do things like different penetration testing, security, we have 9 layers of sort of security protocol to protect ourselves, right? So, and we do a lot of education. It's not only the platform level security that you have to be aware of, it's also the user level security, right? So we can do everything that within our control. And we set up a dedicated fund, what we call a SAFU fund, Safe Asset for User Fund. Stands at $1 billion. So if there's an untoward event, that fund stands ready to compensate users. None of the regulators require us to do that.
So one of the things that we saw that all the major crypto talent exodus happened to Dubai. So it kind of killed off the whole innovation engine of crypto that we had in India. I mean, how should we foster it? I mean, it's something which will only grow if we go by the trends that we see in the market.
Well, I don't know whether that's a fair statement to make, but in any very talented country with big demographics like India, you are a net exporter of talent, whether in crypto space or IT or AI, etc. So if you look at your diaspora, is not only to Dubai, it's to Singapore, it's to all the other major countries, US, etc. So you have to realize that you are a training ground for talent pool, right? But that's the case not only for India. I mean,
We could have led the crypto innovation.
you could have. And
Yeah.
I think the diaspora that you have that have very strong feelings for India will bring all those things back as well, right? So, but what we need to focus on is bringing about, creating a good ecosystem to bring all these very talented people one day back to India to support the country.
So has Binance given up on India, or it will still strongly invest in India? It will still strongly work with regulators. It will still strongly sell its story.
We are investing very strongly in India, and we work very closely with the regulators, right? So India is one of the key countries that we are in. We are regulated by the FIU. We are registered with the FIU. So we are fully committed to really support India, depending on how India wish to play it. But we want to support the crypto adoption, the crypto institutionalization of India. And I think it's an extremely important market, and we will get it right.
So one of the things that RBI says is basically there's no use case, and it's just a speculative asset. So do you see use cases of crypto across the world emerging?
Well, again,
apart from just the transnational.
RBI is not the only one that subscribe to that view. I mean, if you look at Larry Fink from BlackRock. Until a
Yes.
few years ago, until 3 years ago, he doesn't believe in crypto. He changed,
Yes.
and then he's a true believer now.
Yeah.
One of the biggest crypto, Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan,
Yes.
has been bashing crypto for 6 to 7 years.
Yes.
He changed now.
Yeah.
Because it's a lack of deep understanding and knowledge. Once you have that deep understanding and insights into crypto, you understand this technology exists to solve a lot of problems that currently existing, right? So I've been involved in financial services for 31 years now.
Yeah.
Since day one, central banks, financial institutions talk about financial inclusion. But even today, 1.4 billion people around the world are excluded from financial services. Crypto solve a lot of those pain points throughout the world when financial inclusion is extremely low, right? If you look at stablecoin, it solves a lot of problems,
Yes.
right? In terms of transfer, in terms of cost of transfer, in terms of instantaneous transfer, which is why once the institution understand that, they are now embracing and pushing out their own stablecoins. Same for things like real assets tokenization, right? If you look at it, why should the investment platform operate on a 9 to 4 basis tied to banking hours? You should be I mean, market move on the 24/7
Anytime, yeah.
basis. You move on weekend. Why are you subject to the banking hours, right? You should have the ability to invest, to hedge, to manage your own risk, to divest on a 24/7 basis. And that is only possible with blockchain technology once you tokenize the asset class. So there are so many strong use cases, but if you choose to ignore them and not to have deep insights, you always have that bias, right, which is incorrect.
My last question: will quantum computing break crypto?
Well, I do think that as with all technology, things will continue to advance. Quantum technology will advance, crypto will advance. So I don't see that in the imminent future.
Thank you so much. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sparing time out of busy schedule.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you so much.